Now let's move right along. And I had another long ass topic, but I'm gonna just finish it up with the case of the week, right? We'll finish it up with the case of the week, right? Now the case of the week is about the New Orleans mayor, Latoya Cantrell. She has been indicted on federal charges, man. This has to do with wire fraud and conspiracy to commit wire fraud and obstruction of justice and conspiracy to commit obstruction of justice. And oh boy. So she was pretty much having a workplace affair, right? She started this affair at least at the end of 2021, right? Started this affair at the end of 2021. She was married. This affair lasted until the end of 2024. Her husband died in 2023, right? Her husband, his name was Jason Cantrell. He was a prominent lawyer in New Orleans. By the way, yeah, so he was a prominent lawyer in New Orleans. You know what I'm saying? So the lady was cheating on him with a man named, what's the dude name? Jerry Vappy. Right? Not Jerry. His name is Jeffrey Vappy. And he was a police officer, right? So the mayor was pretty much having this dude assigned to her like personal security detail. And then they would travel all over the place together and pretty much, you know, she was like giving him hours for work that he wasn't doing. Like they would be in a hotel for days or going to vineyards and stuff like that. And she would be authorizing him to be paid 15 hours of work every day. Stuff like that, right? And this is an extremely stupid thing to go to prison for. Not saying that they shouldn't get in trouble. I'm saying if you are a person in a position like this, you have to feel like an idiot getting caught doing something this idiotic with your job and with your position. Right. I'm going to just go ahead and read the government's, you know what I'm saying? You know, you got to go to justice.gov and get the actual joint. Right. Let's go to justice.gov and see what's going on over there. Right. I like how they just give it to us as raw and real as we can get it. New Orleans Mayor Latoya Cantrell and former New Orleans Police Department officer Jeffrey Vappy indicted for fraud and obstruction of justice. By the way, Latoya Cantrell and her husband had a child. That child is like 15 years old right now, I think. And or the child was 15 when the dad died 2 years ago, I think. So she's having to deal with seeing in the media now that her mom was having an affair on her dad that passed away. So I know that adds insult to injury. Throwing salt in the wound crazy. Let's read. New Orleans acting U.S. Attorney Michael Simpson announced that Latoya Cantrell, age 53, and Jeffrey Paul Vappy II, age 52, both residents of New Orleans, were charged in a superseding indictment today on federal charges concerning wire fraud and obstruction of justice. Cantrell and Vappy were both charged in a conspiracy to commit wire fraud in violation of Title 18, all that, as well as conspiracy to obstruct justice in violation of Title 18, all of these things, right? Vappy is also charged with 12 counts of wire fraud in violation of this thing, and Cantrell is charged with 6 of those wire fraud counts. Vappy is charged with making a false statement to the FBI in violation of this. Cantrell is charged in 1 count of obstruction of justice for this and 2 counts of making a false declaration before a grand jury. According to allegations contained in the superseding indictment, while Cantrell was mayor of New Orleans and Vappy was a New Orleans Police Department officer and member of her executive protection team, Cantrell and Vappy developed a personal, intimate relationship as early as October 2021. This has a lot of hints of Fonnie Willis and Nathan Wade. I'm not going to lie. A whole lot of hints of Fonnie Willis and Nathan Wade. From that time until Vappy's retirement in June 2024, they embarked on a scheme to defraud the city of New Orleans and New Orleans Police Department by exploiting Vappy's job and Cantrell's authority as mayor to have the city and New Orleans Police Department pay Vappy's salary and expenses during times Vappy claimed to be on duty, but when he was actually engaged in personal activities, often with Cantrell. The allegations contained in the superseding indictment describe the many steps that Cantrell and Vappy took to hide their scheme and perpetuate the continued fraud, including using a secure messaging app, WhatsApp, to exchange over $15,000 15,000 messages, pictures, and audio clips in an 8-month period. And intimidating subordinates, harassing a citizen, lying to colleagues and associates, deleting evidence and making false statements, and ultimately committing perjury before a federal grand jury, all of the purposes of distracting and impeding inquiries and investigations, including a federal grand jury investigation. In 8 months, they sent 15,000 messages, pictures, and audio clips. That's a lot of messages in 8 months. They was doing a lot. The fact that they was like trying to use WhatsApp to hide the whole thing, they was doing a whole lot in their 50s. So that means they really knew what they was doing. They can't act like they didn't know they was doing something wrong because you went to WhatsApp on purpose because you knew that you could set it to disappear, right? And they was in there deleting messages and all time stuff. They got caught. The superseding indictment alleges that Cantrell and Vappy perpetuated their scheme both in New Orleans and during out-of-state trips. This is why the feds got involved, because they was traveling out of state. In both instances, Vappy's activities while claiming to be on duty were conspicuously different than any other member of the Executive Protection Team unit. While in New Orleans, they treated a city-owned apartment in Pontalba as their personal shared residence and coordinated to spend time together there, engaging in personal activities, while Vappy claimed to be on duty for EPU and was paid to be doing his job. Cantrell occasionally canceled scheduled work events to facilitate personal and intimate interactions with Vappy at the Pontalba apartment. That's a strange word to say. The superseding indictment also alleges that Cantrell and Vappy arranged for Vappy to accompany Cantrell on at least 14 domestic and international trips to maximize their time together and engage in personal activities. In their private text messages, Cantrell characterized trips with Vappy as times we are truly alone and what spoils me the most. These trips include trips to San Francisco, which Vappy and Cantrell decided to extend an extra day so they could visit a series of Napa Valley wineries. Who else went to Napa Valley wineries on the government's budget? Nathan Wade and Fonnie Willis. Remember that whole thing? They was out at the wineries and all that type of stuff also. Crazy. They must have been doing this at the same time because this is the same time frame. While Vappy was wine tasting on April 9, 2022, he claimed to work and was paid for a 15-hour day. Yeah, he was definitely not working. He was working something, but he wasn't working his job. In August 2022, Cantrell said she would make it happen to Vappy, to have Vappy accompany her on a 3-day trip to Washington, D.C., a trip that they both agreed they needed. Shortly after they returned, Vappy described the trip to Cantrell as another leg in our journey. As he declared his love for her and their physical relationship, in total, the city of New Orleans paid over $70,000 for Vappy's travel on these trips. When asked about her reason for bringing members of the EPU with her on out-of-state trips, a practice Cantrell began on about 5 months after Vappy joined the EPU, she testified it was a pivot due to COVID as a matter of safety. At the same time, however, she continued to take out-of-state trips without protection. In fact, on the same day she gave one such statement, she canceled a work trip to Miami and traveled alone by plane, then by bus, then by ferry to the island of Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts to spend time with Vappy while he attended a conference paid for by the city of New Orleans related to his position on the Hano Board of Commissioners, a position to which Cantrell appointed him a few months earlier. On other occasions, when Vappy was unavailable to accompany Cantrell on a trip, Cantrell decided not to take another member of the executive production. Superseding indictment alleges that both Vappy and Cantrell were aware their conduct broke criminal laws. For instance, in April 2022, an associate told Cantrell explicitly in multiple text messages that spending public funds and using public resources for her personal relationship was a felony. When Cantrell and Vappy learned that the news media was investigating their time together at Pontalba, they agreed to be straight and together. Days after the first news stories broke in November 2022, Vappy conducted numerous online searches for New Orleans area attorneys who specialize in the practice of criminal law, and he researched WhatsApp security features. But the defendant's wire fraud scheme nevertheless continued until Vappy's retirement in June 2024. By the way, I just want to say one more thing. Cantrell's husband, Latoya Cantrell's husband, died on August 14th, 2023. They came with this indictment almost 2 years to the day August 15th, 2025. It was almost on his death anniversary that they came with this indictment, which is, I don't know if it's a coincidence or it's like they lined it up like that. I don't know. As alleged in the superseding indictment, in July 2023, the grand jury issued subpoenas to both Vappy and Cantrell, compelling the production of records, literally a month before her husband died. The FBI also interviewed Vappy. During the interview, Vappy lied about the nature and circumstance of the relationship. In response to the subpoena, Cantrell produced a selection of responsive records, but none of the over 15,000 WhatsApp messages she exchanged with Vappy. So that's like that's her line, right? Falsifying information to the grand jury because they asked for all the communication. She brought something, she didn't bring it all. Cantrell also created an affidavit sworn under oath that she had activated a feature that automatically deleted messages in 2021. Cantrell submitted a screenshot of her iPhone showing the WhatsApp messages were set to delete in 24 hours. In fact, Cantrell did not turn on that feature until December 26, 2022, roughly 1 month after the news media began speculating on her conduct. Vappy conducted online searches concerning WhatsApp and its security levels, and by the time several people had warned Vappy and Cantrell that their conduct was illegal. So once again, this disappearing messages feature, moreover, only applied to new messages. During roughly the same period, Cantrell also manually deleted thousands of her prior WhatsApp messages with Vappy. As alleged, even at the time period, Cantrell also manually deleted. Even at the time Cantrell responded to the grand jury subpoena, she still possessed more than 50 pictures, including screenshots of correspondence with Vappy that were responsive to subpoena, but she nevertheless concealed to the grand jury. Wow. The superseding indictment further alleges that Vappy and Cantrell continued their pattern of obstruction through the rest of 2023 and 24. This included improperly pressuring the intern superintendent of New Orleans Police Department to overrule findings of an internal investigation into Vappy's conduct. So they did an internal affairs investigation, and they said, hey, overturn that. Well, they found some bad things, and they said, hey, overturn that. When the interim superintendent did not heed that directive, Cantrell ordered the interim superintendent to nevertheless reassign Vappy back to her protection detail. Months later, in a meeting Vappy attended, Cantrell informed the interim superintendent that the interim superintendent would be replaced. Similarly, when a private citizen took pictures of Cantrell and Vappy together in public, dining and consuming alcohol al fresco, while Vappy reported to be on duty, Cantrell obtained non-public information about the citizen, filed a police report, and sought a restraining order against the citizen. Okay, they were doing a lot in this affair. Man. Acting U.S. Attorney Simpson reiterated that the indictment is merely a charge and that the guilt of the defendants must be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Well, y'all have enough records. I mean, they better take plea deals because they're facing a lot of time. If they are convicted of the conspiracy to commit wire fraud, Cantrell and Vappy each faces up to 5 years in prison and up to 3 years of supervised release. Okay, let's keep count. For each count of wire fraud, right? Because the first one was about conspiracy to commit wire fraud. But for each count of wire fraud, Cantrell and Vappy each faces up to 20 years in prison and up to 3 years of supervised release. That's 20 years. They can face up to 20 years for each count. Vappy is charged with 12 counts of wire fraud. Cantrell is charged with 6. So she's facing 120 years alone from the wire fraud. Vappy is facing, what is that, 240? Wait, what am I thinking? Oh, yeah. He facing about 240, right? For the conspiracy to obstruct justice, Cantrell and Vappy each faces up to 20 years in prison. That's 20 years in prison and 3 years supervised release. For the false statement to the FBI, Vappy faces up to 5 years in prison, up to 3 years supervised release. For each obstruction of justice count, Cantrell faces up to 20 years in prison, up to 3 years of supervised release. For each count of making false statements to a grand jury, Cantrell faces up to 5 years in prison. So that's for each count. So these people are looking at, they could be looking at, if run consecutively, hundreds of years in prison, right? I'm assuming they won't be sentenced like that because, they didn't commit like violent crimes against anybody. But the amount of, and for each count, both defendants face a fine of up to $250,000 and $100 mandatory special assessment fee. Because of the amount of time that they're looking at, and I don't see a way where they could really like flip on each other unless they know about some like bigger fish they can tell on. They are cooked. I'm trying to think like what type of deal the DA might offer them to like let them, but it seems like the way that they were moving around, they were being reckless, and then people were trying to warn them, and they were still saying like, nah, I don't care. We hate you. Who cares? We're going to still do what we do. We're going to still move our money around. We're going to still, just, it was getting very reckless. And this is a black woman having an affair with I would call racially ambiguous man. I don't know what his race is. Let me see if I can pull a picture up and y'all tell me what y'all think he is. Y'all tell me what y'all think his race is. Let me pull this up. Photos. What y'all think his race is? So this is Cantrell and Vappy, right? This is them. So these are black people, I'm assuming, right? I know Cantrell is a black woman, but I don't know what Vappy is, right? They are about to get smoked. Let me look up who is the district? Okay. Oh, this is not even district. This is feds. Let me see what U.S. Attorney Simpson looks like. Let me see if this is a white man. And not that it really matters, but it might matter. Oh, yeah. He's an old white man. Yeah, they're going to try to cook them. The Fed's going to try to cook them. I don't know how lenient. They might be lenient and say, all right, just go ahead and plead out and we'll run all these together and you'll just do 20 years. Like, that's a lot of time for some 50-year-old people to do. You understand? That's a long time for some 50-year-old people to be doing. But, the type of crime they committed, they put themselves in a situation that they couldn't even they can't even flip this and tell on somebody else. They can't tell on each other. Like, they stuck. They cooked. But that's the case of the week, man. That is our case of the week. New Orleans Mayor Latoya Cantrell, you are cooked. Had that affair on your husband. Now he done died. He probably found out about it. He died. Now you about to go to jail for it. You and your man going to jail for it. I know Fonnie Willis and Nathan Wade are looking at this like, woo. Glad we didn't get indicted. But I'm sure that they would have been indicted if they could have been, because the paper trail with Fonnie Willis and Nathan Wade they don't have a good paper trail to be able to show what was going on, because they were saying like we did everything in cash, we was paying each other back, like there was really no favors or gifts or anything like that, because we was like we had a net zero. Anytime somebody paid for something, we gave the money back in cash. So they had they had their thing airtight, but they are lawyers though. Nathan Wade and Fonnie Willis are lawyers. Mayor Latoya Cantrell and this police officer, they're moving like somebody that's having an affair with a police officer. You know what I'm saying? Now you're about to go to jail because Jason Cantrell probably could have protected her from this. However, she was having an affair on him. So what can you say? What can we say? Y'all let me know what y'all think about this week's case of the week.